Harry's wife. They never accepted her. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. One of the other factors that came out of the interview that Harry makes mention of, and as part of the book Spare, is his resentment towards his brother and his sister-in-law, two people that he once adored, and he still says that he loves his brother. He said as such during the interview. But once again, notice that his relationship with those two key people has been affected by who? His wife. Beforehand, he had a good relationship with his brother. Sure, there had been the usual sort of rutting stags situation that goes on between brothers, but ostensibly they got on well. Furthermore, he looked to Catherine and thought, "Ooh, if only she were mine." And of course, that's understandably so, because she's kind, she's a good listener, she's funny, she looks after herself, she's decent towards people. She ran the gauntlet of press attention and came out the other side of it. She's a decent human being. And he recognised that, and he got along well with her. And yet, the strong relationship that he had with those two individuals, a rewarding relationship that he had with those two individuals, has been impacted upon because of the spider coming along. And this has been picked up further by Victoria Ward in The Telegraph, who writes, "William and Kate stereotyped Harry's wife," claims Prince Harry. Duke of Sussex say Prince and Princess of Wales created a barrier with his wife, never accepted her from the get-go. I would suggest that Harry's wife believed that there was a barrier as a consequence of her paranoia, and therefore told Harry, "They're being mean to me, they're not being friends with me, Kate won't lend me her lip gloss." And thus Harry, of course, absolutely eager to please, sensitive, of course, to what it's like to marry into or become part of the royal family, immediately went running off taking her side of events, rather than thinking and saying this, "Well, wait a second, Megsy. I've known my brother all my life, I've known Kate a long time, and they're decent sorts. So you may perhaps just have to give a bit of time so they warm up to the idea, but they're really worth getting to know. I don't think there's any barrier, but I can talk to them if you want, but let's just see how it goes." Rather than think, well, I know these two people and I know they're decent people and I don't think that they would cause this. He immediately accepts what Harry's wife has to say. And that's because he was thinking with little Harry. He was affected by his emotional thinking. I've seen this time and time again, that the victim, the primary source victim of the narcissist, basically throws reason out of the window in relation to other people they've known for years, because of the desire to keep hold of the narcissist, to please the narcissist, because that victim has been duped into believing that they've got the best person ever in the world on their side. Let's see what Victoria Ward has to comment. The Duke of Sussex accused the Prince and Princess of Wales of stereotyping his wife, Harry's wife, as a divorced biracial American actress. Well, she is divorced, she is biracial, or at least we eventually found that out. She is American and she's an actress. Okay. Prince Harry told ITV on Sunday night that his brother had voiced concerns about him marrying the Duchess, and claimed that Prince William and his wife had never got on with Harry's wife from the get-go. The Duke was interviewed by ITV's News at 10 anchor Tom Bradby to promote his memoir Spare, which is officially published on Tuesday. He said that the Waleses had never expected him to begin a relationship with someone like Harry's wife, who had had a very successful career. Again, for him to think that she's had a very successful career, I mean, she's had a career. She was far from the most famous or wealthiest of actresses, and we all know, of course, that it's her that describes as very successful. If it was that successful, why did she then go hunting around for a British man to sink her claws into? The article continues, "There was a lot of stereotyping that was happening that I was guilty of as well at the beginning," he said. American actress, right? And that was playing out in the British press and the media at the time as well. Some of the things that my brother and sister-in-law, some of the way they were acting or behaving, definitely felt to me as though, unfortunately, that stereotyping was causing a bit of a barrier to them really sort of, introducing or welcoming her in. This certainly seems to be at odds with what actually went on. None of this was mentioned at the time. And we saw instances where Catherine went to the tennis with Harry's wife, and other people sought to involve her. They were first seen as the Fab Four. So quite where there's this idea that they weren't looking to be welcoming comes from, we all know what it is. It's a paranoia of Harry's wife. Because her narcissism recognised that Harry had such a strong relationship with his brother and sister-in-law, that was a threat to her ability to control him. Furthermore, as a normal, Prince William was more likely to see through Harry's wife. Not necessarily identify that she was a narcissist, but recognise that something wasn't quite right. This again would pose a threat to control. And therefore, Harry's wife's narcissism had to do this. These two are going to be a threat to my control over Ginger Bollocks. Remember, this is going on in the subconscious. Therefore, need to loosen their hold upon him. I need to drive a wedge between them. So what I'll do is I'll dole out a pity play to the Prince of Pink Pancakes and tell them, "You're not being friends with me." And as a consequence of doing that, I'll get him to then think that they're being horrible, so that he will distance himself from them. He will then distance himself from what they have to say. He'll be more supportive of me. He'll spend more time with me to make sure that I'm okay, which will make it easier for me to control him. That's essentially what the narcissism was seeking to do. It's perceived a threat to control by the strength of the relationship between Harry and his brother and his sister-in-law, and therefore set out to stymie that relationship, to nobble that relationship, so that their involvement with him was reduced, making him easier to control by Harry's wife. I've seen it happen many times. Returning to the article, pressed on what he meant, he added, "Well, American actress, divorced, biracial, there's all different parts to that and what that can mean." Notice again the vagueness with Harry. He isn't able to provide any particularization. Do you know why? Because none exists, and he wasn't given any by Harry's wife. He said the Prince of Wales had never tried to dissuade him from marrying the Duchess, but did air some concerns very early, suggesting it was going to be really hard for him. "I still to this day don't truly understand which part of what he was talking about," he said. Well, it looks like there's a revision of history there, because beforehand he said that William had expressed concerns about it being moving too fast and told him just to slow things down, and now he's suggesting that he'd aired some concerns early on. The Duke accused members of the royal family of being complicit in the pain and suffering experienced by his wife in her struggles with the media. This, of course, is coming straight from the mouth of Harry's wife and because of her paranoia. The interview was the first in a series due over the coming days that are expected to generate huge audiences and whip up interest in the Duke's book. It was closely followed on Sunday night by a face-to-face with veteran US broadcaster Anderson Cooper on 60 Minutes. I'll be returning to that in a separate video. There are other observations that came from the interview. The Duke suggested that the Prince and Princess of Wales had formed their views about Harry's wife through the media rather than their own experiences. If you are, like a lot of my family, reading the press, the British tabloids at the same time as living the life, then there is a tendency where you could actually end up living in the tabloid bubble rather than the actual reality, he said. That just strikes me as nonsense. They'd already had involvement with Harry's wife. They didn't need to see what the media had to say about her. They were experiencing it for themselves. Bradbury responded, "But the impression is that they just, from the get-go, it's just that they don't get on. Fair?" "Yeah, fair," Harry replied. He said there were lots of different reasons why that was the case, admitting that he had come to realise he had put a lot of hope into the idea that his brother and sister-in-law would form a foursome with him and his chosen wife that would bring him and William closer together. So, in part, of course, he had unnecessarily high expectations of what the relationship might be, and therefore his views going to be tainted by his own disappointment. The Duke said the Fab Four was simply a media construct that had created competition between the two couples. Very quickly it became Harry's wife versus Kate, he added. Yes, well, we know why that is. Not necessarily driven by the press, but driven by Harry's wife, because she's competitive. Kate's a threat. And that, when it plays out so publicly, you can't hide from that, he added. He said that as the new kids on the block, he and the Duchess were stealing the limelight, just as William and Catherine had attracted attention away from Charles and Camilla when they married. Again, this will be Harry's wife's paranoia. She doesn't like the fact that the limelight is being stolen by Catherine and William, so she then projects and accuses them of lashing out at her because she's stealing the limelight. Remember as well, Harry's wife thinks that she's beautiful, amazing, intelligent, all important, and that she's the one that should have the limelight. The narcissist always believes that to be the case. What are people's views about this observation? Joan Cecil, below the line, writes, "Time to act, King Charles. Time to support your wife, your elder son and his wife Catherine, as they all support you. Also your people, who are also included in Harry's torrent of abuse." Gordon Diak, "No awareness, no insight, no empathy, no intelligence." Stephanie Hazeldine, "Harry obviously believes his brother and sister-in-law are incapable of independent thought. They take their opinions right from the tabloids. Who knew?" David James, "Harry is on record as having low intelligence at school, at Sandhurst and in the military. The results are seen in his poor choice of actions and of people. He turns minor differences, often due to his own stupidity, into long-held deadly traumatic insults that are often blatantly contradictory. He has turned his back on a safe vocation in the military and on his own family. He has abused both. He admits to mental health issues. He has made them far worse by drug taking and by odd new age therapies. And made much, much worse by being emotionally manipulated by a ruthless narcissistic gold digger. She has split him away from any real family support and has moved him to where she can maximise her divorce settlement, in which his buck will be the prime evidence. He's damaging himself and others on many levels. He's an unstable fool. His best strategy will be to say as little as possible. Instead, he's done the opposite. He confirms he's just arrogant, foolish, disloyal and vindictive. Who would talk to or relate to either of them? Stephanie Hazeldine, "What were the lies perpetrated by the royal family? I'm still none the wiser." Christina Hurst, "It's clear that Harry underestimates his brother, sister-in-law and the British people's sense of judgment. If they didn't get on, it's because they immediately clocked her as a gold digger. 12 million wasn't enough for this pair who only wanted privacy. Nope, they tapped Daddy for an extra 5 million, lied about it and then took out a mortgage on a $15 million mansion. Where did they think the money for the mortgage payments was coming from? Ah, yes, from badmouthing his family, now his only source of income, which he must have planned for some time, and he's the cheek to accuse others of scheming, plotting and planning." Joey Deacon, "I'm waiting for the disappointing viewing figures to be announced." E. Hatfield, "Well, the Spanish book release rather undermined any revelations he was intending to make. Maybe the old enemy has some redeeming points." Anthony Wells, "All this blethering on about race. I heard Harry's wife was mixed race, then when I saw a picture of her, I thought rubbish, she just looks Italian or Spanish. It appears she was white as long as it paid her to be. I think it's despicable, especially when so many people world over have genuinely suffered so much vicious racism." Shirley B, "Could the press address what he said in one of the interviews, that he didn't accuse the royal family of racism, that the British press did? Now, didn't they just accept an award for their heroic stand against structural racism in the monarchy? Hasn't Harry's wife used the race card to promote her podcast? How are they allowed to simply shrug that ugly accusation off and get away with it?" Grace Brown, "Harry has been brainwashed, and nothing normal about talking to a pedal bin. Must have been a trashy conversation." Matthew Lake, "When is Harry going to wake up? He needs to just shut up. What good is any of this?" Well, you can see from that, people again see that he's making a complete mess and there is no sympathy for him, and people see, of course, that he's been ensnared by his wife. More and more people see it. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.